Hi all, hope everyone's doing well. It's Joe Cott, AET 164. Big happy Independence Day to everyone. Happy Juneteenth to everyone. Hopefully you guys are getting to enjoy your holiday time. What this video is going to be is a walkthrough on test two. Original test due date for test two was July 4th. I know some of you probably have holiday plans, so if it takes you a little bit of extra time, it's no problem at all. Just make sure you get test two turned in as soon as you have it completed. So what I'm going to do is open up Revit, get everybody kind of to follow along with me. So in case you have any questions or it's really not making any sense to you, you can work your way through the project and hopefully learn a little something on the way. So we'll start with a screen share here. So what we need to do firstly is look at the D2L for the course. This is going to be a longer video, so definitely bear with me. We want to look at the D2L for the course, and we want to find out the test two tab. So under contents, we come down to test two. Under test two, you can see the instructions and the submission, and the due date or the ending date here is July 11th. The test isn't actually due in our system until July 7th. So you have time here to get this turned in after you get a chance to watch this video. So first thing is click on the instructions link, and there are 4 links within the instructions link. One is to download the file. This is the file you need to download. And this is one of the families, which is the sheet layout, 11 by 17 Arch B vertical sheet layout. And that's a family you also download as well. I've already downloaded those files. You can see those down here. Another thing that is in this link is the test two instructions. I have those open here, and you want to open those up so you can follow along with what you need to be doing. We come back here, and it has an example. I think the example is definitely helpful. It's a PDF, and this is what your finished project should look like. You can see here's the 11 by 17 title block. Here are all of the elements of the drawing, all of the words, all of the placement of all the different things you need, and then you can get that going into the project. So let's switch over to Revit now. We want to go to, after you've downloaded the files, you want to go to Open. For me, I go to where I downloaded the files to, so I click Download. You'll see here, last name, DTCC test, right there. And now it's going to open up that file that I downloaded from D2L. So once I've got that opened up, the first step is to look at what the actual steps of the project are. So download the Revit file from Blackboard on your flash drive, and we're going to save it as your last name. So we'll come back into Revit. I'm going to do File, Save As, Project, and then I'm going to save this to my desktop with my last name. Okay, so now that exists on my desktop as the file that I need. All right. The other thing, now we're going to get started with the actual work of the test. So to create a wall section, we come into the view area, click the section tab, and we draw that section. Now, this would be a section facing this direction. What we really want is a section facing the other direction so that it matches the example. And if you wanted to, you could switch the marker so that it would be at the top by clicking those 2 revolving arrows. You could switch the bottom marker. This is more of a conventional drawing standard. And then to open this up, you can either go to the newly created section tab in the project browser, or you could double click the section icon. Okay, so now you can see what it has created. This wall section, which is a snip of the actual project model, the 3D model. So we've created that. It says, if we go back to the instructions, it says create the wall section, and we now want to change the scale. I think you guys know to change the scale, we come down here to this bottom left corner and we set it to the correct scale. That is helpful because it will show our detail level as we need it. Here's the detail level here. Let's set that to fine just so we can kind of see what's going on in all the assemblies. All right, we'll come back to the instructions now. And after we've done that, we want to set the display model under the properties window to halftone. So the display model right here under properties, we'll set that to halftone. So now everything that's in the background is not as prominent as what's in the front of the screen, and that can be helpful as well. So after that's done, we'll come back to the instructions again. Using the detail components, filled regions, detail lines, draft the wall section to match the example. So we have already opened, oh, sorry, stop sharing. We've already opened the example. I believe it's here. And what I'm going to do is set this side by side with my Revit drawing. So I'm going to put this over here. I'm going to make my Revit window a little bit smaller. And this way, sorry, I'm lagging, trying to multitask too much over here. What I'm doing is setting them up this way so that you can see, if I can actually do this, so that you can see the screen. I'm having some trouble dragging it around. Bear with me, please. Okay, we'll come this way with it. Set it up so that it's visual on this side, and we can look at both at the same time. I think that's going to be helpful. All right, good. So now we can see our drawing, our example on this side, and we can see our drawing on this side. So we'll come back into Revit now. And what the instructions are saying to do is to fill in all the detail components, to fill in all the detail lines, to fill in all the filled regions, to finish out the drawing so that it looks like this. So I'll start by hiding that exterior border. We don't need to see that. That's actually one of the steps in the list, but we'll get to that in a moment. If we need to add in a detail component, luckily this example model already has most of what we need already added in. We'll click on Annotate. We'll come here to Detail Components. And then if we click this drop down, you'll see a list of all the detail components you need to complete this test. So everything that we need to draw is actually already in the project, and we just come through in here and select it. So let's start here at the base. What we need to show is a 12 by 24 concrete footing. So the way I would go about doing that is I would actually do a filled region. I would set my filled region to concrete. All right. Once I've done that, I can draw in the concrete area, close that, and now I'm showing the concrete as it is in the model. I'm going to just slide this out of the way, sorry. Now I'm showing this just as it is in the model. The next thing that I want to add are these 5 CMU blocks, are the foundation wall, ultimately the stem wall for the building. So then we'll go into the components. We'll see I've already selected the 10 by 8 by 16 CMU core section. And that, what's nice is it fits directly into the model. You know you're doing it correctly when you see that it aligns with what you've modeled. Now, detail components are really nice because they show what you're trying to create without giving too much information, without putting too much strain on your model. So like it actually shows the mortar, it actually shows the hatching, but in your model you might not show all that. So we can do it in a way that will allow for a little bit faster speed, a little more clarity. And ultimately, this is what tells the contractor what they need to build. So now I've put in my CMUs. The next step would be the 2 by 8 sill plate. So I'll come back to the component, click the sill plate, and that's actually going to be set as 2 by lumber, nominal cut lumber. We'll set that to 2 by 8. If you press the space bar, you can rotate its orientation. Now, in the drawing, it looks like there's plywood coming down the face of the wall, just over the CMU, and then the sill plate or the 2 by lumber at the top is in line with the face of the CMU. So I'll click the Modify tab, I'll click Align, and I'll align that to the block. Once that's done, we want to add in that 1/2 inch anchor bolt. So we'll come back into Annotate, Detail Line, and then you'll see there is a 1/2 inch anchor bolt family already provided in this file. So you just need to select it. You don't need to load anything in, which is very convenient. You don't have to get too nitpicky with it. Like you can see the washer head is actually embedded, but you know, that might not be the case in the actual construction. One thing I do think is weird is that this anchor bolt is coming down into the second level of CMU. We can adjust by grabbing that set of triangles and pulling that down so that we're tying into the stem wall completely. All right. The next thing we want to do here is fill in this floor information. So what are we showing in the floor? We want 2x8 floor joists at 16 inches on center with R19 fiberglass insulation. So to get the component for the floor, we'll go to I gotta find it now. Excuse me, bear with me here. We don't actually show a detail family for the wood. We're just gonna leave what's in the model. And then, yeah, I don't think that the wood is actually loaded. Because it would be nominal cut lumber from the side. Let's say, for instance, you wanted to draw in that nominal cut lumber. You would click Insert, Load Family, and then similarly to other students, it looks like I don't have the Revit families downloaded. That's definitely disappointing there. So what we'll need to do is go to Windows, Program Files, Autodesk, Revit LT 2020. It's in here somewhere. You know what? For this video, I'm going to skip over this step because it's just going to be too time consuming for me to track down that information. So we'll skip over that. We'll go right to the insulation. Come over here to annotate, and you'll see this icon for insulation. You just want to click that, and then we draw it straight in like it's a line. R19 insulation is, I think, 5.5 inches thick. This is only 3.5 inches thick, so we'll set that to the correct dimension. That's part of the floor assembly. Actually, I'm thinking it's 6 inches thick. And you can check that if you type into Google, you know, insulation, R19 insulation, and it'll give you a tolerance there. And you, on the other side of that floor assembly at the header, 2x8 header around the floor would be the rim joist that kind of wraps all that around. And we'll draw that as another detail component. And we'll come down here to nominal lumber, find a detail component for that and place that in there. So now we've got our rim joist. We've got this whole stem wall assembly pretty much detailed. And we can bring our insulation all the way up to that. This stops air from coming up from the crawl space into the enclosure. Once we've done that, the next material we want to add in is our plywood. The subfloor is made up of 3/4 inch plywood. We'll come back to our components, come down to plywood, and we'll select 3/4 inch. So it draws from the bottom. So we drag it this way, and it looks like we're probably going to need to pull this side over as well. We'll do that. Okay, so now you can see you've got your plywood here, but we also need plywood on the exterior of the building. And what's the thickness on that plywood? Well, it's sheathing, but we're just going to use a plywood hatch rather than a sheathing hatch. It'll do the same job, and I don't think that they actually have a sheathing family in here. Yeah, no sheathing family. So we'll use the plywood that's also 3/4 inch. We'll draw from the just below the sill plate, and we'll come straight up the wall with that plywood all the way up into the top of the wall. Sorry, my computer is definitely spazzing out from all the stuff we have going on right now. Okay, so to the top of the wall now, the wall is done, the floor is done, and this assembly is kind of coming to life here. The next step will be the 3/4 inch tongue and groove oak flooring. Now I kind of need to zoom in on this and see exactly what that looks like. It looks like that's a family component. So we'll come back in here, load family, nominal cut lumber. We see the gypsum wallboard, the crown molding, brick, break lines, base molding, architecture, bolts, standard millwork section, and wood strip flooring section. We're gonna do a 1x4. You know what, let's make that a 1x3. I think that looks a little bit more like what they have modeled. And this comes straight from the base of the wall over. So the edge of the wall, actually just inside the drywall, so it goes there. All right, and then we want to just continue with that same element all the way down the wall, all the way down the flooring assembly. This is that tongue and groove element. And we'll just keep, it's not showing for some reason, so I don't think it's placing. We'll do it by copying. So we click Modify, Copy. We have multiple selected, so we can just copy this straight down. It's kind of tedious because the flooring isn't a line, it's an actual object. So you have to place each individual tongue and groove section for the whole floor. We're about halfway there. It's taking a while, so if we can speed this process up by selecting multiple detail elements and then copying them along the path. And now we're moving along quickly down the line. So now we've got our flooring in place. It looks like beyond the flooring, we have base molding as well. And you can see, we see the base molding in section, and then we see the base molding in elevation. Before we get to the base molding, let's go ahead and detail in this wall so that it's actually shown correctly. First part of this wall, which isn't called out, but is part of it, is a sill plate. Looks like a 2x6 or base stud. I'm not sure if I'm using that term correctly, but with metal stud framing, that's called the channel. So we come down here to nominal cut lumber, grab the 2x6, and then that fits nicely into that wall assembly. That'll be what's at the base of our wall. And then we'll do the drywall, which is just inside of that, and it's another family. So come in here, click the gypsum drywall. I'm thinking this is 1/2-inch drywall. Oh, no, it's thicker than 1/2 inch. It's 5/8 inch drywall. Interior drywall, typically 5/8 inch. And that's coming all the way up the wall. So just like the plywood, we'll snap it here to the top of the wall. You can see that it's kind of like that wall assembly is being built out. One more piece of this that they're showing, which they do not actually call out. Oh, R19. So another 6-inch piece of insulation running up the wall to complete that thermal enclosure. Very important for energy performance that you have the correct insulation, or else your building's going to leak too much air. So now I set the width of that to 6. It came in way too large, so we have to set it to 6 inches, not 6 feet. We draw this up and up the wall assembly just like this, and looks like I was right the first time. It's actually 5.5 inches and not 6 inches. I'm going to leave the floor as it is for now. So now we've basically got that wall assembly figured out, except for the top. The top of the wall assembly looks like to be 2 double studs or king stud condition, double top plate as it's labeled here. And that's another detail item, just like we did before, where we'll take the nominal cut lumber and a 2x6 size and press spacebar to adjust that to fit inside the wall. Well, we need 2 of them, double top plate. So now we've got our wall assembly, we've got our floor assembly, and we have our foundation wall all in place. So let's go back here to the base molding. The base molding is another family, and when we just, because it's all already aligned into the project, all we need to do is go into pick the right family. So this doesn't look quite right. That's not really what I'm looking for. Let's see if we can find the right type of base molding. The crown molding, that goes up at the top, not really what I had in mind. Base molding, here we go. Base molding section. So we want to show a 13/16 by 4.5 base molding. That's this third one here. And the section is drawn right like this. So that's how you know that the contractor knows they need to include this in their pricing and in the construction of the project because it's shown in the contract documents. So in order to complete the look of what they're showing here, we want to draw in the rest of that line work. So we just come up to detail lines and draw, all right? And we just want to follow the edge of the molding, just as it's drawn, straight over to the end of the row. And doesn't necessarily have to be absolutely perfect. I'm not sure why there isn't a loaded version of elevation of this base molding, but it's not critical because we can just draw all this stuff in with detail lines and you'll get the same kind of effect. Detail lines are really helpful when what you've modeled doesn't really look like what needs to be in the drawing, so you can come in the end and start to add detail elements and kind of build up the drawing so that it looks complete and so that it is complete. Ultimately, all of this information is part of the building and the design intent. So now we've got the crown molding all drawn in. We've got everything here, but one element that's in their drawing that we want to add as well is this break line. The break line is another detail element, just like everything we've been drawing. And if we're looking for it, you can type into the search line, break line, and it will come up. And then spacebar, just like with the rest of our tools, puts that in place. Looks like it's facing the wrong way, so we'll just turn it. So now we have our break line, our floor assembly, and our interior floor finish and moldings all in place. We kind of just keep moving up the wall as we place elements. At the end, we're going to go through and do all the details here. But the next step, I think, would be the ceiling assembly. Before we put in the crown molding, let's go ahead and put in the ceiling assembly. All right, 2x6 ceiling joist, 16 inches on center with an R38 fiberglass insulation. So you can see the R38 is a little bit thicker. R value is the equivalent of heat transmittance coming through the wall. That's a very simplified definition of it. But the thicker the R value, the higher the R value, the thicker the material typically, especially with fiberglass insulations. You'll come over here. We'll start by adding in the gypsum wallboard on the interior of the ceiling, just like we did before, 5/8 inch. And it's shown in the wall type, so you actually see that level of detail. I'm sorry, guys, my computer can't keep up with all of the stuff happening. So now we've drawn that in. It looks like here you see this as a dashed line. We see this as a dashed line. That way you know that it's passing by the roof joist, the roof rafter. The joist ties into that roof rafter, so we do it as a dashed line. One thing we want to show, though, is the nailer that attaches that rafter and that joist. The nailers are 2x4, so another detail component. And it's a nominal cut lumber. So this one's coming in the right orientation. We'll place that. Let's go ahead and do our insulation now. So that is R30, that is R19. Let's just check thickness of R30. Oh man, they're trying to play me. R38 insulation. So you can easily find this. R38, 12 inches thick. All right, we'll come back over here. R38 is 12 inches thick, so we select our insulation. We come up from 6 inches to 1 foot. And this is important. Lots of heat gets lost through the ceiling and up out of the roof of the building. So you're typically going to see more insulation in the roof to protect against that loss of heat and thermal transmittance. So now that's kind of all done, but we want to show the lines, right, for how that is hidden in the way that it is. So I think the first thing we could do is go to Override Graphics. This might be a little bit different than what you guys have done in the past, but go to Override Graphics by category, and we get this different setup here. And now we can change all the parameters of whatever that element is as it's modeled. What we really want to do is to make the projection lines of that rafter set to a different line style. So I'm going to set it to dashed. Now it'll be a dashed line instead of a solid line, and we press OK. Now, I guess it's not just set as the projection line, but it's actually cutting through. It's actually cutting through the element itself. We go to dash under projection lines. We apply that. Still no change. What we may need to do is go to surface pattern or cut lines. Excuse me, we're not projection lines, but cut lines because it's cutting through the element. And we'll change that to dashed. Now, hopefully, this shows up correctly. All right, so now we see that as it is shown here in the drawing. And you can also change the scale and everything. Like, you know, we override graphics, go to scale. And we can make this a smaller dash. Right now it's dash, typical dash. Let's move it to 1/8 inch scale. Press OK. Now it's showing a little bit more clearly. I think it needs to go actually even a little bit smaller. So we'll come back a third time just to get this right. Cut lines here. Dash. We want that dash at 1/8. That's okay. And I'm not going to mess with it anymore, even though I'm still seeing that this doesn't exactly match up. But I think you guys get the idea. So now we want to go back and we'll just draw in a hard line so that you can see that, you know, what's happening here. This joist passing by the rafter. Everything's happening. So that's the ceiling assembly. Now we're through that piece as well. One last thing we want to do, add in that crown molding. So the crown molding's already been added into the project. Crown molding here is 1 1/16 by 6.5. So we just bring that in, place it into the corner like that, and then we'll go ahead and draw in those detail lines to finish off that project, that detail element. So everywhere where you see a turn in the material, we just add a line so that you would, and that's what that would look like in elevation. The more time you guys spend doing drawings and kind of understanding graphic dimensions, the more that this whole process will just come naturally to you. I think those of you that already have worked in an office or have some really good knowledge of constructability, this is kind of going to be much more of a straightforward process, whereas others, if you're kind of still learning about drawing conventions, this could take some time. So now we've got the roof assembly, wall assembly, floor assembly, and ground foundation as well. The last piece we want to get in terms of model elements are the soffit and the roof rafters. So roof rafter is 2x6 with plywood and shingles. We want to draw in the plywood first, or the sheathing. The sheathing doesn't necessarily need to have to be plywood. There are other types of sheathing that have moisture barriers and more thermal protection or more moisture protection, but we'll start with a 5/8, I believe is what it's set to. So I'm drawing in the wrong direction. We'll go from the bottom to the top. Come up here, and now you'll see that that element is in place. That's done. One thing is I don't think that there's a family for the shingles. I actually don't think that there's a family for the shingles. So we're going to have to draw something ourselves that is actually the family for the shingles. How we do that, there's some different things. There's even detail families you could download that have that look. But one thing that we could do is just start by creating some detail lines or a filled region. Take that to there. We'll start with some detail lines or a filled region. I'm going to do the filled region as a solid black, solid black. We don't want it to be black though, so we have to create a new detail region. So we'll switch from solid black, we'll duplicate that, change it to solid white, okay? And we'll just change the foreground color from black to white. And we'll change the background color from black to white. That way, you'll be able to see it, and it's masking, so it will hide what's behind it as well. So now we're going to draw in our first shingle, and the shingle is probably going to look something like, we'll say it's a 6-inch shingle. Here we are, okay, and the shingle is tapered so that they can align on top of each other. All right, and this is a process, so you're going to have to use your artistic ability to create what you need this to look like. All right, so I started down low, came up high, closed my circle. So now you can see it's tapered. They will nest on top of each other. I'm going to close that. So now I've kind of created this piece that is part of the drawing now, and it acts as the shingle for the project. Even though there was no detail family, we created our own detail family with a little bit of a lip over here. But this nests on top of the one next to it. So how do we show that? What we could do here is copy this element. We'll go from here, and we'll bring it up to here. Now, the trouble is they're overlapping, but you can't actually see that they're, you know, nested on each other. So we'll just edit this profile. And you do that by modifying the boundary, drawing some lines, and coming here, closing it off, and we'll just trim off the extra that we don't need. Okay, so now we've got a really robust shingle that we've created, and we can just go ahead and copy this up the wall. And we've already set to multiple, so now I'm going to just select here. Just keep dragging this up, like so. And like I said, manufacturers will offer their own detail components because they want you to use their projects. But if you ever get into a situation where you can't find the right detail component, you can just draw in something of your own, and filled regions work really well for that. And I'm just drawing in the shingles as I come down the wall. Really kind of a simple process. I think if you've ever worked with AutoCAD, the whole detail component, filled regions, and detail line approach should be very familiar to you. So you just kind of keep working through it in that way. Right, so now we've got the shingles in place. We're going to do a siding, and I'm just going to go ahead and use this same piece for the siding because they don't really stipulate, you know, exactly in the brief exactly what the siding needs to look like or what material, and I don't want you to have to duplicate your work unless you really want to. So we'll come back, we'll place the siding on the, but one thing that you can see directly from looking at the wall assembly is that the shingle isn't quite as thick as what's showing on the siding itself. So why don't we just adjust this so that it looks a little bit thicker? And we can just move this line out to here and enclose this. Okay, now we're kind of like, we're filling in what that really looks like, and we've created something that we can really simply copy down the wall. And we want the soffit here. We want the soffit to be aligned with our top piece of siding. So let's move this down to here. Okay. Now we can just do the same procedure we did for the shingles on the roof and copy this straight down. And that will be our siding for the wall. It's a bit of a tedious process, so just bear with me for a second while I get these all in place. Just like what I did with the flooring, the tongue and groove flooring, I can do multiples at one time to kind of expedite that process of duplicating. Really, you do 4, you cover that much more ground. And we'll bring these all into place, all the way down to wherever the drawing stipulates, probably down here, the end of the wall. And luckily that fits perfectly. So you can see by detailing it, you start to figure out, does this work? Will this really be constructed? in the way that I'm showing it. And I'm just going to pull this back so that there's some meat over it. All right, so now you've got your walls, your roof, your shingles, everything's kind of coming together here for us in the building. The one last piece that we haven't put in yet is the fascia and the soffit and the required aluminum wrap and nailer. All right, so we're going to draw that in just like we've done before with a detail element, nominal cut lumber, 2x10 on the fascia. All right, there it is. Let's align that with the edge of the roof rafter and the top of the plywood. I'm going to send this to the back though, because I want this to be in the back of the view. So I come to arrange, send to back. Now my plywood is coming over it just as it is in that drawing. And I'm actually going to bring this up even higher so that the top of the stud is, top of the fascia board is at the plywood. Okay, so now we've got that drawn in. The next step will be drawing in the actual soffit, and that is done with a 2x4 detail element, nominal cut. We'll just set that right in there. Oh, I'm a little bit off on my alignment, so bring that to the outside of the plywood. So now we've got our soffit element. Now you could actually model in the soffit element, but what I'm just going to do is draw in a detail line to here, and then a separate detail line to here. Now you can change line types. You know, this is a medium line. I could change from a medium line to a different kind of line, like hidden line, but the hidden line's not really showing right, and I don't want to load in another back out of that. I don't want to load in another type, so I'll just do what I did before. I will create a new line type, and let's do this as dashed 1/16. Okay, now you can see that that's a hidden element. It's even still a little bit too big in this view, so we're going to knock it down from 1/16 to dashed 1/16. Okay. That's our smallest view we got. We also want to draw a detail line at the bottom to show that that soffit is enclosed as a framing element. Okay, and part of what's around this outside is an aluminum wrap. So the best way to do that, we've already drawn one detail line. Let's continue drawing detail lines around the outside of our fascia board so that everything is covered. All right, and now we want to draw in an aluminum wrap. So the aluminum wrap has some thickness to it that is very thin. You know, it's like milliliters thick aluminum. But just for our clarity purposes, so that we can see it, we're going to offset that line that we just drew to 1/8 of an inch, so that you can see that there is something around this fascia and soffit. And now you can see what we've drawn in there is the aluminum wrap wrapping around what is the actual soffit and fascia. Looks like we need just one more line in here to close this off. We can draw that in that space as well. All right, good deal. So now we're showing everything that we need to, except for this line here. We're not showing the edge of that rafter. So I'm going to draw in that line as well, just so that you can get that element that is clear what's happening there. And we'll continue it from here up to the edge. All right, so now everything is drawn just as it needs to be in our section. We have it all in there. Couple elements that we want to add to clean everything up. We want to add in this top break line. So we'll come back here, detail, and we can always search for it. Comes right up, press break line, up, facing the wrong way, so press spacebar to align that correctly, and then just set it so that it's, you know, shows the break. The purpose of the break line is eventually this crop region is going to go away, and you want to know, you know, there's something beyond this wall. The next thing we are showing is this this diagram right here shows a slope marker. So we want to put that in. The slope marker you can do by pressing slope right here. And I typically do it this way. And when I do a drawing, this is my office standard. And I think that it's helpful to, no, that's not working. To show, you know, at least we know what the slope is. The way that they want you to show it is by actually drawing in an element. So we'll go up 8 inches, we'll go over 1 foot, and we'll annotate that. Okay, go to this text tab, set to 330 seconds. Let's see if that's large enough. Oh, that's huge. 1 foot, 1 inch, 1 foot, 0 inches. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy this rather than draw another one here. We'll set that to 8 inches. Now you're showing the slope in conformance with this project. You know, you want to stick with their graphics, but I tried to show you a shortcut there. All right, so then we have all that in our model. A couple more things we want to add in so that we look just like what they have. We want to add in the ground plane. The ground plane we add in as a filled region. So how we can do that is go to the earth hatch. It looks like it starts, you know, somewhere midway up here. The slope of the grade always down away from the building so that the water will drain away from the foundation. So you draw that line in there, and then you kind of, the way they did it is they actually created like a spline, which allows you to draw in, you know, something a little bit more expressive. I'm going to close mine off here, enter, and then align these two elements. So now when I press close, you can see the earth as it is here, the grade as it's called. Now, one thing that I don't want is it looks like they have a hard line here at the actual grade, but this is to imply a cut in the earth. The earth goes on beyond that. So we select that line and we switch it from its line type from thin to invisible line. So now when I close that, now you don't see that line anymore. So that's how that earth hatch works there. We'll show the crawl space in the same way. Create a detail region. We'll draw some line work here. Looks like it's about 20 inches up, 2 blocks up, and then we'll come over to the edge of our drawing. Should be out of our crop region. And now I'm going to draw a spline back to area below the foundation. And then you close this off by drawing the remaining of the outline, close it, and we want this one here to be that invisible line. So you'll change the subcategory line type to invisible. Now you're showing the grade as well for the crawl space for the actual grade. Okay, great, we're making great progress here. If you look at the drawings, it looks like they're only showing the level 1 subhead. So we can hide the rest of this stuff. Just click hide, hide element. We want our level 1 logo to be on this side, our marker. We can hide them by clicking the checkboxes, and we'll hide the roof tab as well, just so that it's not shown. And now we've kind of got our drawing built out just as we need it to be. One last thing that's here that I think could be one of the most challenging steps in this whole process is creating this area here, because we're going to shorten the box so that it fits into our drawing sheet. We do that by showing our surround. All right, this is the crop region. We show our crop region, and then by clicking in this area here, we break our crop region so that now, you know, you can see the top half of the wall, you can see the bottom half of the wall. All right. And this allows you to move this piece up and down. This allows you to move this piece up and down in case, you know, you want to show it differently, in case this needs to have more or less space, something like that. You can move things around, which is helpful. And then to finish that off, we add in a final break line. One here, one here and one here. Now you can see how that works as well. When we go to hide our crop region, now you look just like what's shown in the picture. A few final elements that you need to have to submit this. So we want to do the dimensioning. Looks like it's dimensioning from the footer up to the top of the foundation, up to the top of the floor, subfloor, up to the top of the wall. So you'll do the dimension string. I think a lot of this we've been doing in the weekly assignments, but this could get confusing to people when you take the book away and you're not exactly sure what every step needs to be. Oh, looks like I picked to the wrong place. They want to actually see top of finish floor. So I select that again, come to top of finish floor. All right, now you can see I'm in line with what the actual drawing shows. And then we're also going to go to the top of the wall framing. I think that goes to the top of the wall framing. Yep. Couldn't tell you why those numbers don't line up. Looks like there are some differences in the model, but not a big deal. I'm not going to stress about it, just as long as you show the dimensioning. So you have all of that, and then the final step is adding in these callouts. So I'm not going to add in every callout. I'm only going to add in a couple so that you guys get the idea of what you need to do. So you come into here, you want to have a leader. So we'll set the leader here, and then we'll point to the individual thing being called out. And you can just copy right along with the drawing. 2x8, turn on caps lock, sill plate. Okay, so now you can kind of see like exactly where that goes. We'll change that line. And what I typically do is I just copy these all over, and then I go in and change the text as I need it. This one becomes whatever it says in the PDF, 1/2 inch anchor bolt. And we point that to what it actually belongs to. The nice thing about copying them up is you actually want this text to be in a straight line. That's a really important drawing convention, that all the text is in a straight line. And just copy these callouts exactly as they are in the PDF in the example. And this way you know exactly what was drawn, and the contractor knows what they need to build. Also, they know how much they need to bid on, and it becomes a part of their drawing record, the construction document, just align everything so that it fits up. And then you just do this throughout the whole drawing, labeling everything in the drawing just as it is in the PDF. Like I said, I'm not going to go into that whole step. So the final step in this process, we come back to our instructions. Here's where we are. Add the annotations to match. Set the display model under the properties window to do not display. So what they're telling you to do is, when we had it half tone, we're just going to hide everything now. So everything that was in the background is now no longer showing, and the only thing that's in this drawing are detail elements that we've added. Okay, you want to add in the dimension strings. We already did that step. And then the horizontal view break, which we are showing here as well. That helps it to fit on the sheet. So the final thing we need to do is create the sheet for the submission. Go to New Sheet. I've already loaded in this sheet, but if you need to load it in, you download it from D2L. Here it is, B11x17. Load it. Mine is under the downloads because that's how I brought it in, but I've already brought this in, so you would click that. I'm just going to go ahead and click this one. So I'm already showing what I need to. Then you come back to our section, and we just drag this over into our drawing area. So there it is, fits really nicely on the sheet. If we wanted to make this fit a little bit better, now would be our opportunity so that everything's nice and cleaned up. We'll move this over. Bring our dimensions over with it. Okay. So now that's showing well. And then you can play around with this stuff so that everything fits on the sheet. You just kind of like massage it in there until it's well composed. And the last piece is we want to make this smaller so that it fits all and is shown on our 11 by 17. So we do that by opening up our crop region, selecting our crop region, and we're going to pull this down to here. And now we can grab these arrows and pull this up until it fits on the sheet. Hide our crop region again. Our title is over here. We just select the title and you can drag that up. And you could even make your crop region fit. You know, you can make this look a little bit neater, just so that everything is nicely on the sheet. Grab this double arrow, pull it up. So now we have space for our title. To select your title and to move it, you click outside of your drawing so that you know you're not inside of the model space. And you click inside the drawing one time, and then you're able to drag that element. And then to move it, you just click outside of the drawing and click that title. All right. And I think the name of this section in the example is typical wall section at building envelope. So we'll click inside the drawing, click inside the drawing once, double click on the title. Now update that. It shows the scale, it shows everything in there. Username, call this Jocat class test 2. We'll just do this just like it's shown, AT164. 2. And then the nice thing is like all this stuff gets filled in automatically. Scale, time, date. This is very important to the people I work with, that you put in the name. It's going to be me checking it. You put your initials in there. It'll show the project number and then fill in the date in which you submitted, and we'll call the sheet, update the sheet wall section. What's really cool is like now this sheet, when we go down to our tabs view, A1 wall section, everything's updated throughout. One last step, we want to hide that crop right. Okay, great. Looks like we're really close to being done on this. So this is kind of what it needs to look like. And then this is what I would like to do for the final submission. So you can submit your Revit model. Some of you are on a newer version of Revit, so I'm not able to open up your Revit model, but I would like to know that you have one. So you go ahead and submit that. But then another piece of this is I want to go to the print tab. And I want you to try to print this to a PDF. I want you to print this to a PDF. So we want to set this up. Tabloid 11 by 17, it's portrait. We want to fit that to page. I'm going to press OK, and we can preview it, see what that looks like. Looks good to me. You do the same thing, just follow the same procedure. If you can't get a PDF in this way, go ahead and do when you click print, it'll open up a save dialog box. I'm going to save mine to the desktop as cut DDC test 1. Now it's going to save that as a PDF, and you can submit that PDF to the file. That's going to be your test 2 submission. That PDF is what I'm going to actually look at along with the Revit model that you upload as well. If you're having an issue doing that and you can't get the PDF to work, just do the same thing we always do. We'll grab the snip tool. We'll come over here and we will create a snip of your drawing. Of course, my image is going to be in that snip and it'll be a little bit messed up, but you can just save that as a JPEG and submit that as well. All right, so that would be the entire process for test 2. It's very critical that everybody gets test 2 turned in. Their deadline originally had been the 4th because of the holiday. We're going to push that back to the next week. It's the 7th as it's listed on our schedule. I don't want you guys to have to worry about it. Give you some extra time to watch the video and follow along. And then go ahead and upload this to the file. This is the final test for the semester. So after you guys are done this, we're going to be working exclusively on the Eames House project and on the final home construction project. And you guys will be in the clear. Feel free to email me or set up a Zoom meeting if you have any questions at all. And I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thanks again.